The problem is apparent. The Pajaro River, lifeblood of the local economy and ecosystem, and shared by Monterey and Santa Cruz counties, is also a serious threat to lives and livelihoods when it historically floods. That's why the long-awaited, grant-funded, $6 million river bench and bank restoration project is so welcomed. It provides huge amounts of earth to be removed and reshaped, so the river can handle occasionally high flows without flooding, and without destroying fish, fowl, and fauna habitat with that flooding. The 2-year-long effort included the levee crest elevation restoration. That is, lifting the levee to its original height and allowing for enough rise to then allow for the benches to handle heavy flows. Nobody is more closely affected by the Pajaro River than longtime Pajaro Valley landowner Diane Cooley.
This is one of the lowest properties of ranching properties, farming properties in the Pajaro Valley. If there is any kind of flood at all, we get it worst and first. We'd like to be first in many ways, like good farming practices and taking care of the environment and being careful and well-managed property with good labor relations. We do not want to be first in getting flooded.
When the Pajaro flooded its banks and destroyed its levee in 1995, Cooley's property felt the river's wrath. But she says the current bench excavation project is not about limiting this resource, but allowing it to flourish.
I don't want to control the river. I want to enhance the river. I don't want a victory. I want a partnership. I want a partnership with the river and the farming and the water and the bird life. I think it is a restoration and it is a rehabilitation.
The Pajaro River Bench Excavation Project has been widening the river bottom and replanting the banks the past couple of years, providing benches that act as pressure release when flows rise, protecting fish and wildlife in the riverside, and human neighbors farming and living just beyond the levee. Despite the use of heavy-duty earth movers and a fleet of trucks, the project is very organic and, environmentally speaking, a win-win.
Here we have our 3-to-1 bank that's been planted.
Val Haley says this is the biggest project she's worked on, and it has employed multiple nurseries to supply the number of native plants and trees to recreate the natural setting here and replace invasive species in order to naturally hold soils in place during and after high river flows.
I think this is probably one of the largest riparian projects in the area in the Central Coast. So that's really an opportunity to work on something at such a big scale. I wrote the revegetation plan and did the planting plan design. Then I collected a lot of the seeds and cuttings that were used to grow all these plants that have been planted. So it's important that we've got local native material. All this container stock that was planted is being contract grown by 3 native plant nurseries, and it's all been collected from the area. So it's adapted to environmental conditions here and therefore will perform better.
We're bringing back, through the revegetation component of this project, native plants that have been outcompeted by weeds and other invaders or overly maintained to lessen its habitat quality over the years. So we're very proud of that component of this project.
This is a green project in the way it uses recyclable materials to encase the new benched levee banks, and the water used to reduce dust comes from the nearby wastewater treatment plant.
We've gone and tried to find recyclable and green materials, such as the compost socks that we're using for our sediment control to protect the river. That's being done also by a local provider of the compost, which it has to be a certified compost. That provides local jobs for protecting the environment, and it's protecting the farmers and the community from flooding.
People were quite concerned about using potable water to water these plants and keep them alive, and what's their chance of surviving when you're planting them and growing them in a drought. Well, we were fortunate enough to work with the City of Watsonville and Pajaro Valley Water Management Agency and get the recycled water. So we're using recycled water to irrigate these plants. We're trying to be comprehensive and resource-minded in our approach to this project, and we hope it shows.
All of this activity was planned but postponed until nesting raptors and other birds fledged. And the migration of humans and vehicles took care not to intrude on the native turtle species.
It is definitely a corridor, and these animals, which are, largely aquatic, although they do use the upland, they're clearly using the whole length of it. It may be going well upstream beyond our study area or coming from well upstream into our study area. And we've certainly seen other animals, certainly the birds and some of the large mammals, use it as a corridor extensively. But it is very constrained and it's very impacted. It's very degraded at a lot of levels. So we're not going to sort of discount that reality. But what's here does function fairly well, and certainly for the pond turtle, it seems to be a supportive habitat.
Finally, having the money, the local and regional support and mutually beneficial plan for the riverbank, her neighbors, and local wildlife habitat have made this chapter in the Pajaro watershed a celebratory one.
I really put my own sweat into this land and the restoration of it. So that is one of the reasons I feel so strongly about progressing and keeping it healthy and whole, and why I'm so happy to look down here and see a cottonwood tree and see that the willows are still there and all the birds are in them. It strikes us in innumerable ways, not just fiscally, but very personally.